Let's get into our top 5. And again, in tune with October, we are going with our top 5 scariest cards. Evan, why don't you tell the people the concept behind this?
I called it Scariest Cards to See Your Opponent Play.
There you go.
So that means High Evolutionary is not on there. Not that I'm scared of High Evolutionary, just annoyed. See, would that be the first episode of this season to hear me complain about High Evolutionary again? I'll spare everybody the repeat. And I tried to make it, at least from my perspective, cards by themselves that were scary, because High Evolutionary and Cyclops worries me, regular Cyclops doesn't. So it can be scary to see Arnim Zola appear on the same location as Wong and Black Panther, and not just because he's Marvel's second most famous Nazi hanging out with a regal African king, just because that can be intimidating. But if Arnim Zola lands in the wrong spot, it's just funny. Always love to see Sakaar drag my opponent's Arnim Zola out on turn.
Oh, it's great. It's so good. All right, well, let me start here. All right, number 5 for me. Scariest card that I do not want to see my opponent play is...
He's a lot scarier to me. He's on my list, yeah.
Okay, then I'll stop there. What's your number 5?
My number 5, could have gone with Rogue here. A little bit scarier because Rogue only hits one card, is the Enchantress.
Ooh, okay, all right.
You've got your ongoing cards chugging along, doing what they're supposed to do, and then suddenly she comes out and you can't do that anymore.
Nope.
You know, sometimes it's just taking out Luke Cage, and if they're not rocking a hazmat or something like that, or a High Evolutionary deck, it's probably okay. But especially if you've got, say, a deck that depends on the combination of 3 high-cost ongoing cards, it sucks when an Enchantress shows up.
Yes, it does.
And you see it coming before, she has her little effect that goes to each card and takes it out, and you just know what's coming.
Oh yeah, you just watch her take them out one by one. It's not fun to watch her.
When she whispers Enchantress, doesn't that sound like Enchantress from Suicide Squad instead of Marvel's Enchantress?
Good point. So I'll go with my number 4 here, and that is going to be, and whenever Galactus drops, I'm pretty scared.
I ain't afraid of no Galactus.
No? Oh, okay. All right, then.
I'm not going to give those Galactus users the satisfaction.
I get that.
I consider Galactus a challenge to be overcome.
This would have been higher on my list if it wasn't for the fact that they just nerfed him recently.
Mm-hmm.
Now his ability isn't less destructive. It's a little bit more difficult for it to be pulled off. But regardless, he drops out there and you just watch every bit of strategy that you employed into the other 2 locations essentially get obliterated. And then you have to sit there and you got to look at your hand. And 9 times out of 10, the guy that's playing Galactus snapped before he played Galactus. I mean, there's not very many times where they're not snapping because they're not playing Galactus unless they know for a fact that they have the opportunity to win. So yeah, Galactus gets dropped. I'm pretty frightened.
Usually before they play Galactus, they've placed Nimrod and Wolverine. And
right.
If there is a turn after Galactus, you can bet Null and or Death are coming.
Yes, that's the truth. All right, what's your number 4?
Card we've already talked about a lot this episode or these episodes.
Put a pin in it because that's on my list.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and I'll give my number 3. And my number 3, it's not the card that I'm scared of. It's the turn that's skipped before the card gets laid out. Then you're like, oh no, where is this guy going to show up? What lane do I have to worry about? Because I know it's going to happen. Now, if you don't have initiative and you can sit back and maybe have a Shang-Chi in your hand and do some deducing, Infinite and his massive 20 power might be able to be avoided by taking him out with Shang-Chi or something like that. But yeah, Infinite is a huge game swinger. Once he comes out, I mean, really, it's whatever lane you're in, you're going to most likely lose. I love to use him in my Shulkanaut deck because I can get, by turn 7, if I can get a turn 7 going, I can have 2 0-cost Shulkies ready to go along with Infinite, no problem. But I do not like
added 6 points to Sunspot.
Exactly. So I don't want to see Infinite played against me. It is frightening because at that point, well, what am I going to do? All hope is lost, at least for that lane, most likely, unless I have an answer for it in some way. So there you go. My number 3 was Infinite. You got a number 3 there?
Yeah, my number 3 is a character that I would love to see. I love to see on the comic book page. Would be awesome. I love to see show up on the movies, but I don't like to see somebody flip over Cosmo.
Oh, okay.
On the other side. Especially if it's on the location where I played Wong. Unless I've got, say Maximus in there and I don't want them to get to draw 2 cards. Usually I'm not too happy to see Cosmo, even though a dog in a spacesuit with a Russian accent is friggin' delightful.
Oh, yeah. That variant that I got where he almost looks like Scooby-Doo floating out in space. Yeah. I've never upgraded that card, as much as I should have, just because I don't really want to. I love the way it looks. It looks great.
That's like the painted devil dinosaur. I got it 3D and I don't want to do anything else to it.
Don't want to do it. Yeah, don't want to touch it. All right, well, let's switch it up here. What's your number 2?
My number 2 was your number 5, Killmonger.
Killmonger.
I don't know if he's scary so much as he's just anger-inducing. Because I see Killmonger, and I'm like, oh. And then I look over at Nebula or Sunspot or, there's 1-cost cards that I was taking for granted and so proud of myself for playing in the right spot, and they're gone.
Yep.
Those are the ones I really hate to see, but I've got my 1-cost cards. They provide a little points here and there, and or you can't fill up a location.
Yeah.
Killmonger ruins everything.
He does. He can be, like I said, Kitty Pryde is another one that you could.
Oh yeah.
You could start. You're trying to pump Kitty Pryde, her power up, and then all of a sudden, your opponent turns Killmonger over, be second in the turn, and lays out every one of your 1-cost cards. I'm not a fan of watching all my one-cost cards die. And as soon as you see Killmonger pop up, you're like, oh, you start doing a count. I'm like, oh gosh, that guy's going, and that guy's going. It's rough. And not only that, what the setup is sometimes, especially with a destroy deck. Killmonger's out here to give souls to death, so death can arrive. Pretty frightening. Okay, my number 2 is a card that you actually mentioned a couple times already. Mm-hmm. And whenever Wong is flipped over, I am scared for what is coming next, especially if I don't have an answer for it. The problem with this is you don't know. That's, I think, what made Wong number 2 for me, is the uncertainty of what can happen next.
Or why Wong makes you number 2. Metaphorically speaking.
Right. Yeah, there you go. The fact that, okay, is it going to be Gambit that gets laid out here? Is it going to be Mystique that gets laid out here? Is it going to be Hazmat that gets laid out here? Is it going to be Silver Surfer that's laid out here? Now, sometimes you could figure out who's going to be played there. One of the combos that I've been seeing... White Tiger. One of the combos that I've been seeing is Black Panther and Arnim Zola on Wong. That one I think you may have even mentioned, but just watching, you don't know.
Somebody played that on me, and I immediately built a whole deck around it as soon as I lost.
Right. That's what makes Wong so frightening, is that, you got a nice little chummy monk here that's showed up, and you should be, glad to see him, but you're not going to be. His power is, there's reasons why decks are built around him, because he's extremely powerful. And again, like I said, if you don't have an answer for it, which a lot of times I'm rolling with Cosmo because of how afraid of Wong I am. So there you go. Don't be afraid of Wong, or be very afraid of Wong. All right.
Well, I know what your number 1 is.
Right. So let me go ahead and I'll talk about my number 1, and then we'll talk about yours. So yeah, I had Eliath down here, and I'm really surprised that it made it so low on your list, because it's just like an instant mood killer. As soon as you're on that 6th turn, you're like, here we go. And Eliath is the one that gets played across from you, and you don't even get to see it. What makes it even more frightening is the fact that, it's just like consuming your card. It comes over, it grabs it, and your card's gone. I wrote down here that anytime I see Goliath, I feel like it's going to be an instant loss for me because the person's already played all that out. And I know you kind of laid out some things like, I got some answers for Goliath, which really Cosmo is kind of an answer for Goliath because it's an on-reveal ability, if I remember correctly.
Get revealed first.
Yeah, as of right now, I'm still kind of like, it's so new because it just dropped last season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not running into it a whole lot, but I've run into it enough times to where I'm like, I do not like playing against this card. And whenever I see it, it is a scary ordeal. So then we got to talk about your number one.
My number one, and I know he's out there.
He's out there?
He's coming. I'm like, I wonder if they've got him. I bet they got him. I hope they don't got him. It's like, the Brody family with Jaws, or Jamie Lee Curtis with Michael Myers. You know, it's like, you don't think he's out there, but you know he's coming back. Or Nev Campbell with anybody who's watched a slasher movie. You know, you just know eventually it's coming back to haunt you. And it always happens on the Gamma Lab. Always happens on the Gamma Lab. I'm like, hey, I turned 2 or 3 low-cost cards into Hulks. I got this one locked down.
No.
And then here comes Shang-Chi.
Oh, Shang-Chi.
Every time I'm like, man, I got a lot of points on that one. Are they going to play Shang-Chi? And half the time they do. And you know he's there, and you know you should take precautions, but you're like, no, surely not this time. Not this.
There was
the other reason I play Living Tribunal on the last turn, because he's the only guy in that deck that Shang-Chi can take out.
Right. Exactly. There was a game I was playing a couple days ago where there was no way I was getting beaten unless that person had Shang-Chi. And lo and behold, the one card that was going to beat me was Shang-Chi, and that person had Shang-Chi. I get the fear.
I've probably lost more than any single card, more games to Shang-Chi. Of course, I've won a lot of games with Shang-Chi, too.
Oh, yeah. I had Shang-Chi, as a staple in my decks for a really, really long time. And then I kind of got away from him for a little bit. But yeah.
You know who he works really well with?
Tell me.
Zabu,
that's right. That is right. Man, oh man. Well, that right there is some scary cards, folks. I mean, why don't you let us know what's the scariest card out there?
All the chibis.
Number one, every chibi card.
And I don't know if you've really taken a close look at the Agent Coulson pixel card. I mean, as much as I like pixel cards, it looks like he was in a horrible accident.
It's not good. It isn't good at all.
As long as you don't look directly at his face. Okay.
Oh, man. All right. This has been Evan Bevins and Jesse Starcher covering the upcoming season, our discussion on the previous season, our unlocks, our battle, Monsters versus Masks, and our top 5 for September and October of 2023. Marvel Snap material has come to an end. Evan Bevins, let's go ahead and drop some plugs here. Let the people know where they can find you.
Well, you can find me at asterisk51.blogspot.com. That's where I write about comics, movies about comics about movies, comics licensed with the NFL that some people would like to forget existed, but not me. 4 issues into NFL Super Pro, coming up on number 5, guest starring Lawrence Taylor.
Oh, look out.
Every other week, I try to dig into my ridiculous amount of free comic book day comics, many of which I was saving for a rainy day. Well, here we go. So check out hashtag Free Comic Friday on Twitter. And also working my way through an assortment of movies that you can find at Dollar Tree, including very soon, perhaps the greatest movie title I've ever found, High Moon.
High Moon instead of High Noon.
It's about a cowboy hunting werewolves.
Ooh.
I wish I could say that the movie lived up to the title.
Oh,
but it's a great title.
It is.
Great title. More Super Pro action. If you're in a little more of the Halloween mood, you can check out my... I never watched any of the Halloween movies. Well, one a long time ago, but a couple people said, hey, watch Halloween, but then jump to the new one. So I went through and raged against and offered my thoughts on the new trilogy. There were things that bothered me. The sheriff really bothers me.
Oh, okay.
So you can find that, or if you like your superheroics tinged with a little horror, we have Captain America Man and Wolf, which I know you covered recently as well.
Right.
So, yeah, check that out.
Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, you can go check out the Source Material Comics podcast, which is most likely what you're listening to right now, in order to check out our discussion here. For Snap Material, we also talk comic books on here, 90s comics with our premiere show, the Unspoken Issues podcast, and of course, the Source Material Comics podcast, where recently, I think it was as of yesterday, Chris Armstrong and myself got together and talked about DC, The New Frontier, which was a fantastic, I think it was 6 issues series from 2004 by Darwin Cook. We also talked about the movie on his show, Small Screeners, so kind of keep an eye out for that to drop at some point. Look, folks, I mean, I'll throw out other shows there. AI Rights. You know, I love the artificial intelligence, and we had a good time, me and ChatGPT, just chatting it up and talking about some comics and creating some too. So, which has been really interesting. Let's go ahead and get on out of here. That over there is Evan Bevins. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye. Bye.